Hello and welcome to another video on how to create a game like Clash of Clans. In the previous videos we added a system to collect resources. So in this video I'm gonna fix a few problems and add a bunch of functions that are going to help us in the future. So first of all, let's go to the server script. Here in the database, when we place a building, we need to spend some resources to build that building. So to do that, we created a function in the previous video, and now I'm going to complete this function. But before we do that, let me just create another function. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. And this one is going to be check resources. And of course, both of these functions are going to get a MySQL connection. And now here in the place building async, as you can see, we are spending resources, but first let's create the connection. And let's cut this ID and bring it up here and cut everything else and paste them inside our connection. Here in the spend resources, I'm going to pass the connection. And I'm gonna put this spend resources inside an if statement. So only if we spend the resources, then we're gonna insert the building. So let me cut that and paste it here. So if our function, this place building async function, returns 0, it means that the player didn't have enough resources to place this building. So let's go and see where this place building async is getting called. Here it is. So if my building ID equals to 0, we're gonna do something, otherwise we're gonna do something else. And let me cut this, put it here and here. If it is 0, then we're gonna write 0, which means we did not have enough resources. We also have a function up here that is going to check if we have resources or not. So we can just remove that line, which we don't need anymore. And we also need to remove this part, which is the else. And let me select all of this and shift it back. And that should be it. So now let's go back to our function here in the check resources. We need to see if we have enough resources. So let me say if, and we're gonna check for resources. Otherwise, we're just gonna return false. Now before we spend resources, first let's do the check resources. So I'm gonna create 4 integers. And here I'm gonna say if gold greater than 0, or elixir is greater than 0, or dark elixir greater than 0, which means one of these resources has value and we need to check that. And here we're gonna say if the gems has value, then we're gonna check that as well. So first let's do the gems. I'm just gonna need a select statement. Let me find one. Here is one. Let me copy this and I'm just gonna paste it here. Instead of my SQL connection, I'm gonna use this connection that has been passed to us. And here I'm gonna say select gems from accounts where ID equals to this. And I'm gonna pass the account ID. And we need just an integer. Let's say have gems equals to gems. And here we say if have gems is less than gems, just return false. Now we need another if statement, so let's just use this one. Let's copy this and paste it here. So I'm gonna say select global ID and storage from buildings where account ID equals to that and global ID is inside one of our three values. This is one value, two value, and three value. So this is gonna be gold storage, elixir storage, and dark elixir storage. So it's gonna select all the storages for us. So we're gonna select two values. Let me just copy and paste this. This is gonna be string ID, which is going to be our global ID. Let me just make this string, and this is going to be a float, and it's gonna be an integer called storage, and the value in the database is storage, and it's a float, but we need to get it as an integer. So I'm gonna say math.floor. First of all, I'm gonna floor this, and then I'm gonna cast it to an integer, and then we need to switch the ID. So if it's a gold storage, we're gonna add this to have gold. Let me just copy this and paste it twice, and if it is elixir storage, we're gonna add it to have elixir, and if it's dark elixir storage, we're gonna add it to have dark elixir. And finally here I'm gonna say if have gold is less than the gold that is required, or the same thing for have elixir, or our dark elixir that we have is less than required dark elixir. And in this case we're just gonna return false as well. So that's it for our check resources. Let me just collapse that, and let's go to the spend resources. Of course we could use the check resources. Let me just copy this code inside, and I'm gonna paste it here. So for the gems it's easy. We're just gonna say update accounts. I'm gonna say set gems equals to gems minus something, and we're gonna say where ID equals to that. The something is going to be gems, and the ID is going to be account ID, and here we're just gonna say command dot execute non-query, and we don't need that. So that's for the gems. Let's go back here. I'm gonna leave this statement because that's exactly what we need, but we need to create a list of buildings. And we need ID, global ID, and storage. So here when we are selecting the data, let me create another long, and it is going to be, let's just copy this, database equals to long, and it is going to be ID. And here I'm just gonna clear that. Of course we could just put it directly in a variable, so let's say data.building equals to new building. So this is going to be building.id, this is going to be building.storage, and this is going to be building.database ID. And at the end I'm gonna say buildings.addBuilding. So here I'm gonna check to see if our buildings.count is greater than 0. If it's not, return false. Otherwise, let's create 3 integers, and I'm gonna loop through my buildings, And at the end of this for loop, we need to check if spent gold is less than gold, or spent elixir is less than elixir, or spent dark elixir is less than dark elixir. So in this case we have a problem and we're gonna return false. So let me copy this and paste it here. So if it is greater or equal than that, and this one is greater or equal than this, and this is greater or equal, and this is going to be and instead of or, the same thing here, we're just gonna break from the loop. And we move on with the for loop, but if we don't break, then here we need to create an integer called toSpend, and I need to switch between building ID. So it's going to be buildings I.id. I think we have a similar switch statement here. Let's just use this one. I'm just gonna copy the values. We're gonna switch between storages, and let me clear these values. Let's say if spend gold is less than gold, it means that we still need to spend some of the gold. And let's say if buildings I dot storage greater or equal than gold minus spend gold, and in this case to spend equals to gold minus spend gold. Otherwise to spend equals to buildings I dot storage. So I'm just gonna copy this and paste it for the other two cases, and of course we need to rename them to spend elixir and elixir. The same thing here, spend dark elixir and dark elixir. And now that we have a value in our toSpend variable, we need to run a SQL statement. Let me just copy this one. Here at the end of the loop, let me just remove that. So we say update buildings, set storage equals to storage minus that, which is going to be our toSpend, where ID equals to buildings I dot database ID. And now here in the switch statement, we need to also increase spend gold and other variables, plus equals to toSpend. The same thing here, spend elixir plus equals to toSpend. And finally here, and that should take care of our spend resources function. Let me collapse that. And let's open this place building async. Here, as you can see, we passed 0 for the dark elixir. So let's actually fix that as well. Let's go to the data here in the building. I'm going to add another field. Let me just copy and paste this. This is going to be a required dark elixir. And here in the database, I'm going to pass the building dot required dark elixir. And we also need to create that field in the database here in the server buildings. I'll go to structure and add one field after my required gems, require dark elixir. So as defined, it's 0, and let me save this. Now let's go back to the server, and here in the get server building async, I'm gonna add the field to get the required dark elixir as well. So here it is. That should take care of that. One more thing that we need to do, let's go right here and get MySQL connection. Let me find all the references. It being referenced from 3 different places. Let me go to the first one. So whenever I open a MySQL connection, it would be better to just close it. So after I'm done with it, here I'm gonna say connection.close. Let me go to the second reference. The same thing here. When I open the connection, I'm gonna close it. And the last one, here when I open the connection in the collect async, down here I'm just gonna close it. And let's go up there and apply this MySQL connection function to all of our methods. So I'm just gonna delete this MySQL variable because I no longer need it. I'm just gonna delete that, and it will introduce a bunch of errors. Let's go and fix every single one of them. So here I'm just gonna say using MySQL connection equals to get MySQL connection, and here at the end I'm gonna say connection.close. So let's actually copy this first and bring it to all the places that we have an error. Just paste it there. That's one. Here's another one. This is another. Here we go, and hopefully this is the last one. Now I'm just gonna cut all of the code and bring it inside this connection area. And instead of using MySQL connection, I'm just saying connection. That is one down. Let's go to the other ones. I'm just gonna cut all of this, paste it inside, and instead of MySQL connection, I'm just gonna say connection. The same thing here. Okay, this one is already have a connection, so let me just remove that and just use connection. Let me collapse this. Let's go to the next one. That should do this, and let's say connection. And this is a big one, so let's get all of this data, cut that, and paste it here. And instead of all of these, we are saying connection, and the same thing here. I think we missed one. Let me just copy this. Let's go here. Just gonna paste it, saying connection. Well, actually it does have a connection, so let me just revert the changes, and instead of using MySQL connection, we're just gonna use connection. So that's it. We're no longer gonna have an error from our database. Let me just collapse all of this. And here in the authenticate player async, let's find where we inserting the town hall. As you can see, we have rows count and columns count inside our MySQL query. So I'm just gonna remove those 2 values because they are no longer inside our buildings table. So let me just remove those two. The same thing here. So that should fix any problem. So let me run the server and double check everything. And I'm gonna go to Unity Editor and play the game. And everything appears to be working perfectly. Let's go to the shop and place a gold mine. We got an error. Okay, this is easy to fix. Let me stop the server, and here in the SQL query I'm gonna say require dark elixir. So that is going to fix the error. Of course, before we forget, let's actually add this required dark elixir to our client site as well. So I'm gonna copy that. And let's go to our client in the player script. Well, actually, I think it is in data script. I'm just gonna replace our server building class, and this should fix any problem that we might encounter. Let's go to the server and play it one more time. The same thing in our client. Here we go. I am going to add a gold mine. Hopefully we have enough resources. Nope, we don't have enough resources. Let's go and see here in the buildings. I'm going to add a few golds to my gold storage. Let's add a 0 to it. Now let's go back to the client. As you can see here, the gold has been updated. Now I think we should be able to place a gold mine. That's it. Well, actually, to place a gold mine, I think we need elixir. We don't need gold, so let's go and create an elixir collector building. I'm gonna go to my prefabs buildings, and here instead of gold mine, let me just drag it into my scene, and let me create a 3D object capsule and bring it under here to make it look different. And let's also give it a color, because why not? I'm just gonna create a color. Let's name it pink. And I'm gonna add this to the capsule. Of course, we don't need any collider, so I'm just gonna remove that. And instead of gold mine, it's gonna be elixir mine or collector or whatever. Let's just say mine. And of course, we need to add the ID. Let's go to the building. Actually, I think it was in the data. Here it is. I'm gonna add elixir mine. And let's add the dark elixir mine and dark elixir storage. And the same thing for the elixir. I'm gonna add elixir storage. So like this, you can add as many buildings as you want, even if those buildings are not in the Clash of Clans games. You can invent your own buildings, add as many buildings as you want. So let's also add these buildings inside our database in the server buildings. I want to insert, so let's say elixir mine level 1 requires, let's say, 300 golds, and the size is going to be 3 and 3. Capacity is going to be 2000 elixirs. The speed, let's say 1000 per hour, and that should be everything. Let me create that. And let's go to the browse. Here it is. Let's also add the elixir storage. And here it's going to be level 1. It requires, let's say, 200 gold, 3 and 3. And the capacity, let's say, 5000 elixirs. And let's hit go. Here we go. We have those buildings as well. Now let's go back to our Unity. And this is my elixir mine. I'm gonna just change it to elixir mine. And here in the prefab buildings, I'm gonna drag and drop it. And here I'm gonna also create the elixir storage. So let's change the type to elixir storage. And here let me just duplicate this capsule and make it look different. Here we go. I'm gonna make a prefab out of it, and let me just delete that. Now in the canvas in our UI main, we need to add these buildings. Here it is, one of them, and that is the other one. And here in the shop, we need to create UI buttons for them. Let me open this a little bit. Here we go. I'm gonna duplicate this 2 times. This is gonna be Elixir mine and Elixir storage. So let's change the type. This is going to be Elixir mine, and this is going to be Elixir storage. We could also change the text of the button, and the same thing for our storage. And that should do it. Let me collapse this and hide the elements. I'm gonna save this scene and let's play it. Now we have a lot of gold, so we should be able to place as many Elixir mines and Elixir storages. This value is still 0, 0, so let's check this out. Actually, let's go to the player here in the player script. So I'm just gonna copy this. Of course, this is the sync data area, so here I'm gonna paste the values. So this is gonna be Elixir mine and Elixir storage, and here instead of button gold collect, we need to change it to button Elixir collect. Let's go and create those buttons first. Here in our buttons, let's go to the canvas, and in the main I'm just gonna add this to my icons. Let's go to the 2D view. I'm gonna duplicate this. This is gonna be collect Elixir, and this is going to be collect dark Elixir. So let's just remove the gold and hide this one. This is the Elixir. I'm just gonna give it a color like that and make a prefab out of it. So let's delete that. Here it is. I'm gonna enable this, give it a dark color, and make a prefab out of this one as well. And here in the UI main, let's go and create 2 UI buttons. I'm just gonna copy that and paste it twice. Elixir and of course dark Elixir. And now that we have the buttons here, let's go to the player, and here instead of button collect gold, I'm gonna say button collect Elixir, and everything else is the way they should be. Here in the Elixir storage, instead of max gold, I'm gonna say max Elixir, and this is going to be Elixir. And let me copy all of that and paste it here, and this is going to be dark Elixir mine and dark Elixir storage. This is going to be max dark Elixir, and this is going to be dark Elixir. Here's also going to be button collect dark Elixir. So I'm gonna save that, and let's go to the Unity editor, and here in the UI main, assign the buttons that we just created. Here they are, button collect Elixir and collect dark Elixir. So I'm gonna save this scene and play the game. And as you can see, we now have 0 Elixir and we can have 5,000. Let me collect some. Here we go. We can also collect gold, and everything should be working fine. Let me actually add another Elixir storage. So now we can store 10,000 Elixirs, and everything looks good and working perfectly. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And by the way, I don't know if you've noticed or not, I have been adding the source code of the game, both client and the server, in the description of the video. So you can download that if you're not in the mood to follow up with this video, and I know it can be very hard. So the source code is available for you in the description just in case if you need it. So have fun and thanks for watching.